It was Friday evening, July 25th, 2025, in Los Angeles, the kind of Friday that every working American knows too well. The relief of escaping a long and hectic work week mixed with the excitement of 2 days of freedom just ahead. And as I drove down Wilshire Boulevard watching the sun sink into Pacific horizon, I could almost taste the weekend, already imagining a couple of beers with friends, a Netflix binge at home, and maybe even a Saturday hike up to Runyon Canyon. But little did I know that my life was about to take a turn that felt straight out of a Hollywood thriller. And as I share this with you, I want you to drop your city and time zone in the comments, because I'm curious. What were you doing last Friday of July this year? Did you trust someone you barely knew? Because sometimes one single choice, one simple act of kindness, can change the course of your life forever. And that's exactly what happened to me. As I was approaching a red light near Santa Monica Boulevard, I noticed a young woman standing on the side of the road with a small carry-on bag, looking a little lost, but waving her hand desperately as cars passed her by. And something about her caught my attention. Not just her beauty, though she was stunning with long blonde hair and eyes as blue as the sky after rain, but also her expression, that mix of innocence and desperation that makes you pause for a second and against a voice in my head that told me not to stop for strangers in Los Angeles. I slowed down and rolled down my window. She leaned in slightly, her accent soft but noticeable, and asked, "Excuse me, could you give me a ride downtown?" She explained quickly that she was new in the city, an immigrant from Finland, and had only landed 3 days ago, staying temporarily at an Airbnb in East LA, but she didn't know her way around, and taxis were expensive. Now, I want you to stop here and think. If you were me, would you have trusted her? Would you have opened your car door to a stranger on a Friday night in Los Angeles? Tell me in the comments, because this is where choices define fate. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the door. She got in, and her perfume filled the car, a sweet floral scent that instantly made me forget the warnings my father used to give me about trusting strangers. We drove through the warm Los Angeles night, the streetlights painting the asphalt gold, and she introduced herself as Alina, saying she had studied hospitality back in Helsinki, but wanted to start a new life in California, chasing the American dream. She asked about my work, my weekends, my favorite places in LA, and the way she laughed at my jokes made me feel like I had known her for longer than 20 minutes. When we reached her Airbnb, she hesitated and then asked if I'd like to grab a drink with her, because, as she said, it's Friday, and I don't want to spend my first Friday in America alone. Now let me pause here and ask you, would you have said yes? Imagine you've had a long week, you're single, and a gorgeous immigrant girl invites you for drinks. Most people would jump at the chance, and that's exactly what I did. We headed to a rooftop bar near downtown LA, the kind of place where you can see the entire city glow like a blanket of stars, and we ordered cocktails, me with my usual whiskey sour, her with mojito, and we talked for hours. She told me about missing her family, about how everything in LA felt too fast, too bright, too overwhelming, and I felt sympathy for her. She made me believe she was vulnerable, innocent, in need of someone to guide her. I know now that was her talent, making people feel needed. By the time we left the bar, it was past midnight, and she was tipsy, laughing uncontrollably at little things like the Uber driver's ringtone or the neon signs outside. When I realized how high she was, I got concerned about her safety. This was downtown Los Angeles, not exactly the safest place for a young foreigner at 1 a.m. So I suggested she stay at my apartment for the night. "It's safer," I told her, "and I don't want you wandering around drunk in a new city." She smiled and agreed, and at that moment I thought I was doing something good, being responsible, being kind, maybe even beginning a new friendship. We stopped at a 24-hour dine on the way and grabbed some burgers and fries, laughing like teenagers as she tried to pronounce cheeseburger deluxe with her Finnish accent. We finally reached my apartment in Westwood, a decent 2-bedroom space with a small balcony overlooking the UCLA campus, and I remember unlocking the smart door of my iPhone app, feeling proud of how technology made life easier in LA. Once inside, I gave her some water, put the food on the coffee table, and we had a late-night dinner while streaming Spotify on my Alexa. It felt normal, even cozy, like two friends hanging out, and eventually exhausted, we both dozed off. But when the morning light slipped through the blinds, everything changed. I opened my eyes groggily, expecting to see her asleep on the couch, but instead, I realized something horrifying. My wrists and ankles were tied tightly with thick ropes, and I was strapped to my own bed like a hostage. My heart stopped for a second. I tried to move, but the ropes cut into my skin. Then I heard laughter. Soft, casual laughter that didn't belong in a scene of horror. I turned my head and saw Alina, not alone, but with 3 other people, 2 men and another woman, sitting casually in my living room, sipping coffee from my favorite Starbucks mugs like they owned the place. The shock hit me like a truck. The girl I had pitied, trusted, and welcomed into my home had betrayed me in the worst way possible. She walked into the bedroom holding my iPad in her hands, scrolling through my apps like she lived there forever, and said, "You really should change your passwords more often." My stomach dropped. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just dealing with a lost immigrant girl. I was staring at a gang of thieves who had lured me into their trap. Now pause here and think, what would you have done? Scream for help? Try to fight back? Or just stayed silent, hoping they'd leave you alive? I want to hear your answers in the comments. Because at that moment, my entire world flipped upside down, and I realized that what I thought was an innocent Friday night had become a nightmare that would test every ounce of my strength. And this, my friends, was only the beginning. The ropes cut into my wrists as I struggled against them, my breath coming out in sharp bursts, and for a moment I wondered if I was dreaming, if maybe the cocktails and exhaustion had created some twisted hallucination. But the smirk on Alina's face told me otherwise, and the casual way her so-called friend sat there drinking coffee, scrolling through my phone and laptop, told me this was carefully planned, not a random accident, and panic began to sink in like ice through my veins. I wasn't. Just tied up, I was prey, and they were circling. One of the men, tall and muscular with tattoos snaking up his neck, glanced at me and chuckled. "Relax, man. We're not here to hurt you unless you make this difficult." The other woman, with short black hair and sharp eyeliner, tapped away on my MacBook, muttering something about bank accounts and crypto wallets. My blood ran cold. They weren't just after my TV or jewelry. They wanted everything. My savings, my identity, my future. And in that moment, I realized how foolish I'd been. One small decision, offering a stranger a ride, had opened the door to this nightmare. I wanted to scream, but the words caught in my throat. Should I beg? Should I threaten? Should I pretend to cooperate? That's the thing about betrayal. It scrambles your mind, makes you doubt every instinct, and as I lay there tied in my own bed, I remember my mother's warning from years ago. Not everyone who smiles at you is your friend. If only I had listened. Alina crouched beside me, her blue eyes now cold and calculating. No trace of the shy immigrant girl from last night. "You made it too easy," she whispered, almost with pity. "A ride, a drink, a bed, men are so predictable." Her words stung more than the ropes. It wasn't just theft. It was humiliation, a game to them. My heart pounded as the second man, shorter but with a cruel expression, began rummaging through my drawers, pulling out my passport, credit cards, and even the watch my father had given me when I graduated college. Every piece of my life, every symbol of trust and hard work, was being stripped away. I couldn't just lie there. I had to think fast. And here's where I want you, the listener, to put yourself in my shoes. What would you do? Tied up in your own home with criminals plotting to destroy your life? Would you risk fighting back? Or would you wait for a miracle? Tell me in the comments, because this is the kind of choice that separates survivors from victims. I tested the ropes again, twisting my wrists until the skin burned, and realized they weren't as tight as they seemed. Maybe in their arrogance they tied me too quickly, or maybe they underestimated me. Either way, that was my window. Meanwhile, Alina and her crew debated their next move. The tattooed guy wanted to transfer money immediately. The black-haired woman said they should wait until the banks opened fully. Alina wanted to wipe my devices clean first. Their argument gave me precious seconds, and slowly, painfully, I managed to slip one wrist halfway free. My heart hammered. This was my chance. But I knew one wrong move could mean disaster. If they caught me struggling, they might gag me, or worse. I forced myself to stay calm, breathing slowly, pretending to be exhausted, while my mind raced. Then fate threw me a lifeline. My phone buzzed loudly on the nightstand. A friend was calling. The gang froze. For a split second they were distracted. And in that moment, I pulled my hand free completely and lunged for the phone. The rope around my ankles tripped me and I fell hard to the floor. But I managed to grab the device and hit 911 before the two guy ripped it from my hands. The call connected, though, and I shouted, "Help! Home invasion!" before he slammed it down. The room exploded in chaos. "You idiot!" the black-haired woman screamed. "Now they're coming." Alina's face twisted with fury, her calm mask finally breaking. "We have 10 minutes," she snapped. "Grab everything and go." They scrambled, stuffing cash, electronics, and jewelry into bags, while I lay on the floor half-bound, blood dripping from my wrists where the rope had cut deep. My chest ached, but inside me burned a spark of hope. 911 had my location. Help was coming. I just had to survive until then. I wriggled the ropes off my ankles, pain shooting through me, and stumbled toward the kitchen. If I could grab something, anything, I could defend myself. But the short man spotted me and tackled me to the ground, his knee pressing into my back. "Stay down," he snarled, twisting my arm. I screamed, not just in pain, but to alert the neighbors, praying someone might hear. And then, like a scene from a movie, red and blue lights flashed outside the window. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The cavalry was coming. Panic swept the gang. The tattooed man cursed. The woman slammed the laptop shut, and Alina, grabbed my wallet and ran for the balcony, shouting, "Split up!" They scattered like cockroaches when the light turns on. The short man bolted to the front door. The black-haired woman tried to fire escape, and tattoo guy attempted to drag one of my duffel bags with him. But they had underestimated the speed of Los Angeles police. Within seconds, the hallway filled with heavy footsteps, shouts of LAPD. "Freeze!" and the crack of a battering ram as officers stormed in. The short man barely made it 2 steps before being tackled by 2 cops. The woman on the fire escape was yanked back inside and cuffed. Tattoo guy dropped the duffel and raised his hands. And Alina? She tried to charm her way out, still clinging to her innocent immigrant act. Tears streaming as she said, "I was kidnapped by them too. I'm the victim." But the officers weren't fooled. They'd heard my 911 call. They saw the ropes, the bruises, the chaos. The mask had fallen, and the thief girl was finally exposed. Relief flooded me as they untied me completely, helped me to my feet, and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. My apartment was trashed, my valuable stuff into bags, my trust shattered. But I was alive. And as the police let Alina and her crew away in handcuffs, I locked eyes with her one last time. She didn't look scared. Not really. She looked angry, like she hated losing. And in that moment, I realized people like her don't care about kindness, don't care about trust. They see good people as targets. That was the hardest lesson of all. Later, after giving my statement at the station and watching the dawn break over Los Angeles, I sat in silence, replaying everything in my mind. The ride, the drinks, the laughter, the betrayal. And I asked myself the same question I'll ask you now. If you were in my place, would you have stopped for her on that street? Or would you have driven past, ignoring her wave, saving yourself from a nightmare? Because life is full of crossroads, and sometimes the smallest gesture of kindness can open the darkest doors. For me, the lesson was brutal but clear. Trust has to be earned, not given freely. And in a city like Los Angeles, where dreams and nightmares walk hand in hand, caution can be the difference between survival and disaster. So I'll end with this call to action. Be careful who you let into your life. Be cautious with strangers who seem too perfect. And most importantly, share your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done differently? Would you have trusted her? Would you have fought harder? I want to know, because maybe your answer will help someone else avoid becoming the next victim of a thief girl.